The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. We're reaching the top of the hour. We'll wait a minute or two for others to join in. So stay tuned. We'll be right with you. All right. We're ready to go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly NetApp webinar. Some housekeeping before we start. The session is being recorded, so the audio is closed. If you have any questions, you can send them through the question section in the GoToWebinar window at any time. We'll try to address them during the session or at the end. In any case, the recordings and the slides of the session, as well as answers for the unanswered questions, will be sent to you by email in the next few days. My name is Oded Berman, and I'm part of the product marketing team from the NetApp Cloud Innovation Center located in Tel Aviv. The webinar today is a joint one together with Talon, and its topic is Consolidate Unstructured Data into NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP with Talon Fast. With us today is Jaap van Duvenbode from Talon. Hey Jaap, I'm very excited to having you here with us today. Can you briefly introduce yourself and what Talon does?
Thank you so much, Oded, and thanks for having us today and everyone joining this session today. My name is Jaap van Duvenbode. I'm product director with Talon, based out of Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Talon is a global software company that since 2010 has helped enterprises to centralize and consolidate unstructured data and solve challenges associated with distributed storage. So I'm going to talk a little bit more today on how our technology enables customers with NetApp infrastructure to go through the exercise of moving unstructured data into the cloud. So I'm really excited. Again, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the question window. If we don't get to it today, feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details are on this slide. So let's get going. So now we talked about, done the introductions. I want to give you a little bit of an overview on what we're seeing in the industry when it comes to customers and organizations taking on the largest workloads in their environment, being unstructured data. A lot of companies that I'm speaking to and I'm working with together with NetApp, they're in the process of modernizing their IT and consolidating IT assets, either into their data centers or a lot of them nowadays into the cloud as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Subsequently, I'm going to show you a little bit about the Talon Fast intelligent file caching technology, how that complements NetApp's ecosystem of solutions and specifically Cloud Volumes ONTAP, to allow for better centralization and consolidation strategy in distributed environments. Then Oded will basically talk about the Cloud Volumes ONTAP solution in a little bit more detail, and we'll actually have a customer success story today from one of our mutual clients, HEB Construction, that have leveraged the NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP technology and the Talon Fast solution to help in the centralization of their unstructured data. There's a lot of cool things to talk about there. Subsequently, we're going to wrap up with some joint solution benefits, some considerations when you are going through this exercise yourselves, or you're working with clients to go through the exercise of data centralization, consolidation, or introducing a global file system or global namespace. We'll talk a little bit about that. And I got a little demonstration at the tail end to show how easy it is to set up the joint solution, create a managed storage platform in the cloud using Cloud Volumes ONTAP, and leverage the Talon Fast solution to bring that data close to the users in the distributed locations. But now let me first talk a little bit about the factors that are impacting the distributed enterprise. And when I'm talking to our clients, and typically 80% of their data sets, their storage represents unstructured file data. So think about file shares, think about file servers, think about NAS devices, think about pretty much all things, file sharing. 80% of that data still lives outside of the data center. That's what we're finding on local file servers, in branch offices, in construction sites, in remote manufacturing locations. And customers are really struggling managing and maintaining that information. Subsequently, when you look closer at that data, we also find that less than 10% of that data is actually active, which means that customers are provisioning 90% of that storage infrastructure, typically on primary storage or on file servers, for data that is rarely used or barely used. So that model of large amounts of unstructured data in a distributed enterprise presents the following challenges. And the challenges are twofold. On one end, IT is struggling, managing islands of data, having to secure that environment and making sure that all your access control, your permissions, your data management is done in a distributed fashion. Local backups or data replication, or basically being able to store that data and protect it from a data protection point of view. It presents a big challenge. So basically, a distributed environment with local file servers often provides a very complex challenge, a very complex challenge in terms of managing that IT infrastructure. And if you haven't been able to centralize that data, subsequently, we find that business productivity is impacted as well, which means that by having multiple versions of the truth, either being replicated, either being locally stored in these distributed locations, you find that a lot of customers and work groups that you're working with, they have duplicate and conflicting file versions, suffering from data loss, having trouble with file integrity issues because there's no single source of truth. Now, subsequently, that presents a very complex business workflow. So how do you now basically collaborate or share files on a global scale? Often we find customers just moving data around or sending emails with attachments, which presents a big challenge. Now, if I look at it this holistically, and specifically while working with the NetApp teams, when we're talking to our customers, we find that they're often in the process of kind of leveraging a more modernized approach towards managing storage. So traditionally, they may have used things like DFSR to replicate data between branch office sites into a centralized data environment. Maybe they used VDI, they've used WAN optimization to speed up the data between their distributed sites as well as the data center. What we're now seeing is that customers are embracing a modernization strategy for the purpose of consolidation, either into a data center, a hybrid cloud, or a full public cloud infrastructure. That means that customers are becoming more intelligent around how you are going to manage that storage. And this is not a lift and shift approach. If you're talking about hundreds of terabytes worth of storage, maybe even petabytes worth of storage, you got to find a more intelligent way of managing that data. That often includes separating active from archive data, finding the right strategy to leverage primary storage in conjunction with object storage for lower cost workloads, and subsequently a proper BCDR strategy. So in this example, you see three different layers that are typically involved in a modernization strategy or a consolidation strategy, where the cloud layer becomes your managed storage platform. The distributed IT layer allows you to use commodity hardware to create a utility server model based on standardized technologies and allows you to kind of use commodity hardware to present that centralized data in real time to your distributed locations and to your distributed users by leveraging the Talon file caching technology. It kind of coincides with all these different roles and features that you need today at your branch offices, but instead of having to manage a file server, you can leverage our caching technology to accomplish this type of strategy. Subsequently, when it comes to the users they're typically used to their traditional file server infrastructure. They're used to access their data through either a namespace, a drive mapping. They have a transparent experience. Yes, customers may use OneDrive, they may use SharePoint, but for unstructured data, what we're seeing, there's a big demand for file sharing that extends beyond the local realm of the distributed offices, but really provides a transparent experience for users to work in a global fashion with real-time collaboration and things like global file locking. And that's kind of the ecosystem that we're seeing today. We're seeing that as part of a full consolidation strategy by moving up these workloads into the cloud. And typically the last one that's moving up there is your unstructured data or your IaaS workloads. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. So where does Talon Fast come in? Talon Fast is a software solution that helps organizations to centralize unstructured data workloads into a data center or into the cloud. Today we're going to talk about how that enables NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP to be leveraged in the cloud as a primary storage workload. Subsequently, as a result, by leveraging our caching technology, we're eliminating complexity, eliminating the management of storage, infrastructure, and backups at these branch office locations. And as a result, because you now have a single source of truth, and you can still bring the data close to the users, you're introducing enterprise global file sharing with central file locking in real time. So no more replication, no more duplicate file versions, no more conflicting data sets. Everything is managed and maintained in an authoritative fashion and cached locally at the edge. Subsequently, because we're overcoming the challenges around the CIFS and SMB protocol, the Microsoft Windows file sharing protocol, and allow an optimal experience at all of your geographically distributed locations. Even if you have high latency, we have customers with more than 400 milliseconds of latency between the branch and their nearest cloud region, and the performance is optimal because it's Microsoft-centric caching technology that we're going to leverage. And subsequently, as a result of being able to help consolidate these unstructured data workloads and streamline the infrastructure, reduce the hardware and storage footprint, we're often drastically reducing the cost of storage and infrastructure at these distributed locations and really benefiting from the latest technology in the cloud around data management and leveraging the NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP solution for that. And with that thought process, I'm going to leave this to Odette to talk to us a little bit more about Cloud Volumes ONTAP, the benefits, and subsequently we'll dig deeper. We'll do a deep dive into how both technologies will come together. Odette, back to you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I'm going to just grab the screen. So let me just show my screen to you. All right, here it is. Can you see it yet?
Yep, perfect.
All right, so before Yap would introduce you with Talon software solution, since it addresses those challenges together with NetApp, I'd like to briefly tell you about NetApp's Cloud Volumes ONTAP solution. So Cloud Volumes ONTAP is a fully fledged version of ONTAP running natively in the cloud, consume native cloud storage that can be deployed on both AWS and Azure cloud providers. Now, if you're already managing ONTAP systems on premises, it is the same ONTAP software. You would use the same tools, features, and services in the same way that you're doing today on your on-prem system. If you're new to NetApp and to ONTAP, then ONTAP is NetApp's data management software that has been around for more than 25 years. It is a very mature and proven technology upon which Cloud Volumes ONTAP is based. Cloud Volumes ONTAP allow you to get unified storage access by basically supporting both NAS and SAN data access protocols such as NFS, SMB, and iSCSI. With Cloud Volumes ONTAP, your cloud storage can be efficiently managed and associated costs could be reduced by leveraging its storage efficiency features. Furthermore, Cloud Volumes ONTAP supports all the different levels and different aspects of business continuity and data protection requirements. So by leveraging its data protection features and services, you can reset assured that your data is highly protected. Cloud Volumes ONTAP is already implemented and working successfully with hundreds of customers globally and can be consumed by the hour or upfront. Now, since ONTAP can be deployed on premises, on private clouds as well, and on public clouds, it enables us to support hybrid and multi-cloud environments seamlessly. Now, generally speaking, there are two main challenges for any business storing its data in the cloud. The first one is how to be cost effective, you could say, and the second one is how to protect the data against various failures, malicious acts, etc. We know that data grows constantly, so there's always the need to reduce its footprint and saving capacity, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. Cloud Volumes ONTAP is equipped with a set of storage efficiency features that addresses the first challenge. So the first feature that I'd like to tell you about is thin provisioning, which allows you to allocate space without the need to allocate the same physical storage ahead. You simply pay as you go and you increase your physical capacity only when really needed. This, of course, eliminates the need to pay ahead for storage resources that might sit idle until it's consumed. The second efficiency feature would be deduplication that provides you with a single instance storage by dedicating and removing duplicate blocks, storing unique blocks only on your Cloud Volumes ONTAP system. Another really nice storage efficiency feature is compression that provides transparent data compression based on various sophisticated algorithms that eventually reduce the overall capacity. And there's another one named compaction that packages multiple small blocks together into a single physical storage block. You could basically say that it eliminates white space that was generated by either compression or by applications that are performing small writes. Now, altogether, those 4 storage efficiency features can reduce your storage expenses by as much as 70%. Another feature that's worth talking about that would have a great impact on your storage costs while delivering the benefits of cloud economics without sacrificing performance or having to re-architect your storage solution is data tiering. Data tiering is available by Cloud Volumes ONTAP on both AWS and Azure. Now, when enabled, it allows Cloud Volumes ONTAP to differentiate between hot data, data that you access frequently, to cold data, the data that is accessed infrequently. Basically leaving the hot data on high performance storage such as EBS volumes or managed disks, while automatically and seamlessly moving the cold data to a cheaper object storage such as S3 or blob storage, therefore reducing the high performance storage footprint and its associated cost. It is a great cost-saving feature, and it can bring your savings even further beyond the efficiency features that we've discussed in the previous slide. Now, there are various tiering policies that exist that allow you to choose based on the use case what type of data would be moved to the cheaper object storage. Another cost efficiency feature is Flex Clone that allows you to instantly create writable clones of your data without any capacity overhead or performance penalty. Now, initially, when a clone is created, it has no storage overhead. It only starts consuming storage space when data is changed or added to. Flex Clone is extremely useful and cost efficient in DevOps environment and automated testing. It could also be used for data protection needs as well, such as disaster recovery testing on a secondary Cloud Volumes ONTAP system. Now, as we said a few slides back, the second challenge is how to protect your data in the cloud against various failures, malicious acts, and more. As mentioned before, Cloud Volumes ONTAP support the different levels and different aspects of business continuity and data protection requirements. The groundwork for Cloud Volumes ONTAP data protection that would have a great impact on your data footprint and cost as well are snapshots. Snapshots are local read-only point-in-time images of your data that can be accessed simply at any time. It's basically a recovery point. ONTAP allows you to create many snapshots for your data instantly without consuming space initially and without disrupting running applications and their performance. Snapshots only start consuming space in the system when changes are made to the data. Now, ONTAP snapshots are not available natively in AWS or in Azure. Snapshot is a fundamental feature of ONTAP upon which additional features are based. One of them is SnapMirror. SnapMirror is ONTAP's efficient data replication engine that is used to create secondary copies of your data across hybrid environments, geographics, and clouds, which leads us to another aspect of data protection, which is disaster recovery and backup. Disaster recovery, you can say that it's the ability to maintain a synchronized secondary copy of your data, while backup would be the ability to replicate selected snapshots for long retention to a secondary ONTAP system, of course. Now, creating and maintaining those secondary copies is done using NetApp SnapMirror replication technology. Cloud Volumes ONTAP helps you to seamlessly fail over and fail back your business to the secondary copy and restore data from that secondary copy when needed. Finally, Cloud Volumes ONTAP comes in a high availability configuration as well. High availability, or HA mode, is based on two Cloud Volumes ONTAP nodes. Now, if one of the nodes fails, the other one automatically and seamlessly takes over the other, guaranteeing that there's no data loss, meaning your RPO would be zero, and there's a very quick failover. Cloud Volumes ONTAP HA is currently available on both AWS and Azure cloud providers. Now, before we talk about our mutual client, HEB Construction, let's see how does Talon software addresses the challenges that Yap mentioned before, together with NetApp's Cloud Volumes ONTAP solution.
Thank you very much. I think that's great. I think just recapping what we're seeing a lot is it's customers, they're trying to move this unstructured data into the cloud. And I think what we've seen so far and working with you guys over the last couple of years is, leveraging an enterprise-grade storage platform in the cloud with a enterprise-grade technology to bring that data closer to the users is really unique in the approach. And we find that a lot of customers, they're embracing this type of strategy, and they like the approach of having an open system. So you're not being locked into a specific cloud provider or not being locked into a specific technology to manage your data or access your data. This NetApp has 25 years worth of experience in terms of managing data, backup, restores, RTOs, RPOs, everything that's involved in that. And Talon, over the last 8 years, we've been working with some of the largest customers to kind of front end that data footprint to bring the data to the end users in the distributed sites. So just to recap briefly is, when we're talking about Talon Fast, we're a natural extension to the NetApp infrastructure, or the Cloud Volumes ONTAP infrastructure. We're an intelligent file caching technology that runs on Windows Server. Runs on Windows Server 2012 R2 onwards, and fully integrates with your Microsoft ecosystem. So if you have file servers at your distributed locations, or you're running Hyper-V or VMware, we can just sit on top of that infrastructure and create a unique cache. And that cache can coexist with all the roles and features that you may or may not have at those sites, such as software distribution using SCCM, local print services, local data management, maybe some DPM, DLM tools that you're using to do auditing or do specific file monitoring. And also because it's fully Microsoft centric, a lot of our customers, they're benefiting from the delivery technologies to speed up the rollout strategies when it comes to creating customized templates, being able to store to stage out the deployments in a remotely fashion using things like PowerShell and PowerShell desired state configuration. So in a nutshell, our technology is available as a software installation package or a virtual appliance template that customers can leverage. It's flexible and scalable. You may have hundreds of terabytes worth of centralized storage. We're only caching what's needed at the branch, and we're storage agnostic. The only thing we're caring about is a CIFS and SMB infrastructure. The solution is highly intelligent. So if I have 20 sites with different amount of users, I can use the same storage, I can use the same infrastructure, I can use the same software. The cache will populate as it grows organically, or using things like pre-population to pre-stage some active files in the locations where you actually need them. The cache also is a zero-touch mechanism, which basically means you don't have to monitor replication. You don't have to monitor storage utilization at the edge. As data is being consumed by your users, the cache grows organically, and over time, will clean out the least recently used data. That means that data that is archived or still will be removed from the cache and still be accessible from a centralized data perspective. So that data still sits on NetApp. The data is accessible in a transparent fashion. So if your users are used to their home drives or their projects drives or their drive mappings or using a namespace, our technology fits transparently into that ecosystem and honors all of the principles of the SMB CIFS protocol, all the different dialects, all the different protocols, including global file locking, which is really important when you're working together and collaborating on large project files or on your traditional office documents even. Subsequently, because we're caching on top of an NTFS file system and we're leveraging principles of streaming, compression, and delta differencing to move data between the edge and the data center core or the Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance, we're able to drastically reduce the amount of data that goes over the wide area network and subsequently enhance that end user experience. It really looks and feels as if you're working on a traditional file server, but now on a global scale. And subsequently, one of the key benefits when we architected the solution and made the decision to sit on Microsoft platform, you can leverage any type of hardware. So if you have a large site with an existing VMware or Hyper-V instance, or you have a small site with a microserver where you just want to deploy the software on top of, our software fits that strategy. Subsequently, when you look at the architecture, what does it look like? If you're thinking about centralization of data and kind of eliminating these distributed storage pods that you have in your environment and bringing it all into one place, what do you need? So we talked about NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP. That's your storage platform. That's where you manage your data assets. That's where you kind of provision your storage. You make sure that your ACLs are in place. You mount to the volumes. And subsequently, you deploy our software next to it. So you deploy an instance of the Talon Fast software in a VM sitting next to that centralized storage. So in this case, for example, we're deploying an Azure VM or an AWS EC2 instance and just deploy our software on top of it. It mounts to the centralized file shares. And subsequently, at each of your edge sites that require a cache, you'll just deploy the same software package on top of your Windows Server instance. And what it does, it allows these edge sites to connect into what we call the fast fabric, also named the core instance, to get access to that centralized data. So the idea here is that your distributed locations connect to the centralized storage, Cloud Volumes ONTAP, via our fast fabric. And there's two distinct components involved at each edge site. There's a virtual file share that you can just access via UNC path or embed within your DFS namespace. And there's an intelligent file cache. And that intelligent file cache is an NTFS volume that you provision, any size, shape, or form. So in this case, San Francisco, you may only have 20 users in that location. They may only have a 500 gigabyte cache. Maybe you have a big office in New York. You may want to provision a 2 terabyte cache. It doesn't really matter. You can scale it up on the fly. It just leverages the principles of the Microsoft operating system. The cache can be as small or as large as you want it to be, and obviously is sized based on the active data set, which is that 90-10 rule, right? 10% of the data being active. You may have 100 terabytes of storage centrally, but you may only need 500 gigabytes at the edge, which drastically reduces the storage footprint. And subsequently, because now users are accessing the data through the virtual file share, everyone can see all of the data that is centrally stored and provisioned. You're only caching what's actively being used, and at the same time, you're able to collaborate in real time on some of these enterprise applications that your users may be using, i.e. Autodesk products, Bentley products, Dassault. There's a lot of organizations out there that write solutions for specific industries that are based on file sharing semantics. So we work with some of the largest engineering, construction, and manufacturing firms to help them introduce not only centralization and consolidation of IT, but also introduce collaboration for their global workforce. If we dig a little bit deeper in terms of what that looks like, if you want to use the cloud for primary storage, which is really exciting with NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP, if you have a specific strategy towards Azure or Amazon, we can fit in there either way. What you need is basically a Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance, one or multiple, depending on the amount of data that you're provisioning, and you deploy our VM sitting next to it, either in a standalone or in a core setup or core cluster setup. And that VM creates what we call the fabric and mounts to these central file servers and file shares and aggregates that in one namespace. So if I'm in Amsterdam and I want to get access to my centralized data, I don't have to go all the way over the wide area network to get my data, but I'm actually using my edge in that specific site as the designated cache to get my centralized data. And again, that could be a small microserver, that could be a rec-based server, that could be a VM that's running the file cache in that respective site. Now, when a user opens a file, let's say I'm in Amsterdam, I click on my Word document. Let's keep it simple for now. The moment that I click on the file, obviously I'm authenticated. I got my Kerberos ticket, and basically I'm authenticated against the file. What happens? I'm opening the file from the edge. The edge communicates with the core, takes out a central file lock, and ensures data consistency. Subsequently streams and compresses the data over the wide area network to store the data in the cache and serve it to the end users. The moment that that data is in the cache, we will always use that file cache to delta difference any changes back or forth between the edge and the authoritative data. So now if I make a change to the Word document, I'm saving my changes, we're only sending the delta blocks over the wide area network to commit that change to the central authoritative copy. If I have the file open, and let's say Odette opens the file from Tel Aviv, or in this case, New York, he basically gets a message and says, hey, Jaap has the file in use in Amsterdam. Do you want to get a read-only copy? Do you want to get a notification when the file's available for read-write, or do you want to merge the contents at the later time? All of those semantics work exactly the same as you would typically expect from a traditional file server, but now on a global scale with regards to consistency, locking, and basically the benefits of things like compression and delta differencing. So if we're making massive amounts of changes on a file, we're doing write back and we're delta differencing the changes back to the authoritative copy, which also drastically reduces the impact on egress traffic because you're caching the data locally. So 99% of your active data is locally cached at your edge, and you're only fetching the increments out of the cloud. So this model really allows you to reduce the cost associated not only with storing or managing or in terms of productivity, but also factors in drastic reduction on egress charges as well. So now let me get back to our customer story, and we're going to talk a little bit about HEV construction, give you guys a real life example what we've done together. At HEV.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but there's an interesting question that was just rose up, So before you gonna go through the HEB story, if you could answer this. So I would read it so all the audience would be able to hear, and you'll address it. So the question is, how does Talon Fast compares to Nasuni?
That's a great question. And how we compare to Nasuni is we leverage a completely, utterly different approach in terms of managing storage. And that's why we partner with enterprise storage partners such as NetApp. And what Nasuni does is they create a proprietary file system in the cloud that is accessed by controllers that do some form of Samba emulation, which may be a nice solution when you just want to consolidate backup and you have only 5 to 10 sites in terms of your infrastructure. And it uses a proprietary system in a way that it manages your data, so you can't really get access and manage that data yourself. So the difference here is NetApp provides an open solution where you can apply all of your data management requirements. Talon leverages a Microsoft-centric approach, so no proprietary OS, no proprietary file system, to basically leverage the caching technology and present the files as if it's a file server to the end users. So the biggest difference here is Nasuni is designed for smaller scale environments on proprietary hardware, on proprietary operating system, and the NetApp Talon solution provides for an open solution with no vendor lock-in that is Microsoft-centric and leverages any type of cloud, hybrid, or on-premise type of infrastructure.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
By the way, if there's any other questions, we'll feel free to put them in the chat, or otherwise feel free to reach out to either one of us. I mean, we'll be happily sharing more insight there as well. So now let's get back to HEB construction. So as we talked about, I mentioned we work with a lot of engineering and construction companies because they deal with the largest file sets in the world and the most complex applications. So this is an example of HEB. They're a construction company out of New Zealand. They're part of the Vinci conglomerate out of France, responsible for it's a $40 billion type of business. And for this project in New Zealand and in the Australia region, the customers identified challenges around their distributed sites with distributed storage. And when we engaged with Steve Beckwith, who was head of IT for HEB, he said, Jaap, I have so many sites with local storage, very poor bandwidth, and I have a data center that I'm managing today that's part of this office building. Our office is going to be closed in 6 months, and we got to move to a new headquarters. And my CAO told me, you got to move this stuff off premise. We want to basically create a single set of data, and everyone needs to be able to access that. Oh, and by the way, you got to take all your servers out of the basement and move that into the cloud. So that was him and I having a conversation, I think approximately 9 months ago when we talked, and he said, there's a lot of things going on at our company. There's a cloud-first strategy. We want to make sure that all of our IT workloads, including unstructured data, are being consolidated into Microsoft Azure. Subsequently, he told me about the aging hardware and some of the old Windows servers that he was running at his edges, and managing backup locally, managing data locally was really something that impacted the business. Sometimes if they lost a site, for example, it took them 3 to 4 weeks to bring it back up because there was no hardware, there was no infrastructure, there was no software, data loss, et cetera, et cetera. So they kind of came to the conclusion and said, hey, our storage is not enterprise grade. We need to basically look at an enterprise storage solution in conjunction with Microsoft Azure to circumvent and mitigate these risks of local data management in those sites. And subsequently, when we came to talk further and further, we talked about the objectives. So what were the key objectives for them? Enable access and improve user experience for all of the sites, but particularly the problem sites with slow and unreliable bandwidth. I kid you not, some of the sites had 2 megabits pipe with 300 milliseconds of latency. How do you kind of bring the data there close to the users in those sites? They wanted to consolidate and automate the branches as much as possible, kind of streamlining, creating a standardized template in terms of the services, the storage, the features and roles that they would need for the specific branch offices. They also needed to introduce the ability to collaborate in real time on live projects from multiple locations. So think about this company, they're responsible for large subway systems, metro lines, civil engineering, highways, big projects, but also urban design and urban engineering. They needed to basically be able to access the data from any type of location in real time without having any issues with duplicate file versions. So we had people kind of talk about the idea of leveraging porta cabins, leveraging local sites that were at a construction site, using a cache to basically get access to that centralized data. They also needed to eliminate the need for local backups at these branch offices. And after a 30-day evaluation with both technologies, they selected the Talon solution for its flexibility and a NetApp solution for its enterprise readiness for the enablement of consolidated storage and leveraging an open architecture and a very easy to manage infrastructure, all backed by Microsoft Azure, NetApp, as well as the Talon caching technology at the edges. And if I would look like, what does it look like today? They got 15 sites deployed. They got over 100 terabytes worth of live data, and they're going up to a petabyte worth of archive data. So they've deployed the NetApp Cloud Volumes ONTAP infrastructure in Azure. They're basically, overlaying that with our fast core instance, mounting to decentralized file shares, and they're bringing the data to the users using our caching technology in the respective edge sites. Something that they're looking at as well is to introduce additional redundancy options, not only for the purpose of HA, but also for disaster recovery, leveraging SnapMirror to multiple regions to move data between different regions if that's required. So we're not really depending on GRS there. We're just using things like SnapMirror to move that to different regions where needed. And subsequently, they can use a cold standby as a DR instance as well. So the net of it, what have they been able to achieve? They've been able to achieve a transparent interface, been able to centralize and consolidate their storage and provide transparent access to their data using the fast fabric. They've enabled sovereign data management with NetApp's infrastructure using the standard protocols for volume creation, for ACLs and NTFS permissions. They now leverage NetApp storage efficiency in the back end, not only using primary disk, but also using fabric pools to tier off data to object storage as well. So dedupe and compression would benefit the overall cost of the solution. Volume encryption is important. Integration with Microsoft Active Directory and the ACLs and the permissions that come with that. Full use of Cloud Volumes, ONTAP snapshot, and restore mechanisms and archive capabilities. And they've been able to leverage SnapMirror technology and our clustering technology to facilitate for disaster recovery and HA. But foremost, being able to providing real-time access to that centralized data with file locking, users have been able to get a transparent experience with that single source of truth on the data that they should be working on. Before I wrap this up and kind of provide you guys a demo of what that looks like, I think there's a few questions. Odette, can you check for me if there's a few questions in the chat window?
Yeah, actually, there's a question that is related to the HAB story. Did HEB consider a multi-cloud for SnapMirror backup?
Great question. Yes, they did. It's something that I see more and more, especially in the large enterprises. Currently, we have not implemented a multi-cloud strategy. It's on the radar going forward, but it's definitely an option. And because you got these open systems, you can use a combination of Azure and AWS to facilitate for a multi-cloud strategy, both using Cloud Volumes ONTAP in Azure, Cloud Volumes ONTAP in AWS, and then leverage our core server in both clouds as well to present access to the edges as well. So I think that's a great question, and we're seeing this more and more at the enterprise. But for HEB, that's something that may be out for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that HEB got a full integration with they have a full integration with Microsoft Active Directory.
Mm-hmm.
So can Talon fast be used by different Active Directory domains?
Yes. Yeah. So whether you have different forests or different domains, as long as a trust is in place between those domains, and it can be a one trust. You'll be able to enumerate the SIDs with regards to the permissions that you allows. We can work transparently in a multi-domain environment. It's that, as one of the solutions out there in terms of doing chain technology or providing access to centralized data. We're the only solution that can leverage the domain or multi-forest type of environment because of the transparent integration within the Microsoft ecosystem.
All right. I think that would be.
Yeah. So let me just move on. I think we got 10 more minutes to wrap it up. Any other questions? We'll just pick them up at the tail end, and we'll just move forward from there. So what I wanted to do is give you a quick overview on the Cloud Volumes ONTAP infrastructure. And I used an example here, and I learned from previous webinars, always record a video, never try to do it live. Basically, what we've spun up a Cloud Volumes instance using the Cloud Manager in the AWS cloud. So the way that this works is basically you log into your Cloud Manager, your Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance is associated with that, and now you can basically start to provision your rooms. You can provision your file shares and set up the type of storage that you require, what we call the backend storage component or the storage platform in the cloud. So as you can see, it's creating a very small volume. I think it's 5 gigs. And what I've done is I'm going to use this volume and I'm going to stage some data in this. And as you can see, the share volume has been created. It's 5 gigs. It's really small. Subsequently, that file share is available to me if I want to get access from in the cloud, directly mapping to the IP address or the NetBIOS name of the instance. As you can see here, what I'm going to do shortly is I'm going to jump onto one of my VMs in the cloud that sits next to the Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance. I'm going to name that VM to be what we call the core instance. And that core basically bounds to your centralized file shares. So now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste UNC path, and I'm going to access the data share on the Cloud Volumes ON instance. And that Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance, whatever you put in place in data management, that happens behind the scenes. This is just a file share with a test folder that I'm using that we're going to use for the purpose of the actual demo. A bunch of files on my desktop. I'm copy pasting that into the folder. Now, obviously, you're talking about 100 terabytes worth of storage. Your data migration would not look something like this. You would typically use third-party solutions like NetApp's Cloud Sync or XCP solution, move data into the cloud and subsequently present it as a centralized data set. But for the demo, it's pretty straightforward. Now that we have data in our Cloud Volumes ONTAP file share, I'm going to show you the baseline configuration on the core. Much of this nowadays happens through SCI or through PowerShell, but I'm just going to show you that in order to deploy an associated core instance with the Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance, there's 2 things I need to do. First, I need to build in a service account, and subsequently, as a second, I need to be able to mount ONTAP instance, either using a NetBIOS name, FQDN, or even IP address. And I've already done that for the sake of the demo. You can see in my configured backend servers list, I got 3 targets: localhost, which basically connects to a local share, AWS, which is an EC2 file server, and ONTAP, which is a Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance. Now I install the software in the edge. So now going to my, the board is in New Jersey, my edge is in New Jersey, and I'm going to associate this edge with the core in Azure, or AWS in this sense. So what do I need to do? I need to associate this edge with the fabric, in this case in AWS. And as you can see, we're currently associated with AWS-core with the following IP address. What I'm doing there is, now that my edge is associated with the core and connected, my edge the centralized file shares through the fast fabric in real time. So even a branch office, and I'm miles away because I think this demo was recorded with approximately 200 milliseconds worth of latency. I just go to my local edge, either through drive mapping or through DFS namespace. You can see the association with AWS Core, and there's my backend targets. And one of the backend targets is ONTAP. And what I'm doing there, I'm just browsing into the folder. As we just created the data share, it will show up. It represents a small little X mark, which means the data associated with that object hasn't been cached locally in that local edge side before, but the metadata is available. So now I can see all these files and folders as if I'm working from a file server. The moment that I click on one of these files, what happens? It communicates with the core takes out a central file lock, streams, compresses the data over the wide area network, and it opens the file in my Word application. That first open can take a couple of seconds to complete, but the moment that your data is cached, it's really as if you're working from a traditional. So now I have a centralized file lock. If someone else tries to open up the same document, they get a message that Jaap has the file in use, and you want to get a notification, or do you want it open up as a read-only? And that basically shows you that we have a very transparent way of integrating within the Microsoft file sharing mechanism and provide access to this data set in real time through just running two software instances, one at the edge and one at the core, mounting to Cloud Volumes ONTAP. And we got some more demo materials on our website if you'd like to check that out. But the basics of it is pretty short. It's all centered around centralization of data, structure unstructured data into one place, and creating, this single pane of glass for your organization where files are consistent, protected by global file locking, but also secured from a backup and snapshots perspective as well. So that being said, if I would conclude part of the overview, what I've been able to do for customers like HE, we've been able to centralize and consolidate their unstructured data, modernize storage infrastructure, and integrate customers' cloud-centered environments, eliminate complexity costs at the branch by simplification of IT infrastructure, eliminate branch office backups, deliver an end-to-end software-based solution. Because we're just running on Microsoft Windows Server, Cloud Volumes ONTAP just runs in the cloud of choice. Very easy. Subsequently leverage drastic cost reduction and storage and infrastructure footprint reduction across the enterprise as well. And because all of these technologies are available through either pay-as-you-go or subscription-based solutions, it's very easy for companies to adopt this type of initiative and help towards finally getting towards the idea of a consolidated and central data set. And with that, I would like to hand this back to Odette, and thank everyone for joining, and provide you some additional time for Q&As.
All right, I grabbed the screen. Thank you very much, Jeff. We hope you found today's webinar educational and useful. If you wish to learn more and get started, with Cloud Volumes ONTAP, you can visit us at Cloud Central, one location when you can launch and try projects such as Cloud Manager and Cloud Volumes ONTAP. Try the TCO calculator, cloud assessment, and so on. If you wish to learn more and get started with Talon, you can visit their website or send an email to info@talonstorage.com. I would like now to launch a quick poll. I would leave it there for a couple of minutes. And at the meantime, we'll start taking more questions. So let me just find that poll. Here it is. Okay, I'll leave it there for a minute or two. At the meantime, we can start taking further questions. So, There was a question here. Does Talon also run in combination with ONTAP Select? Yeah. All right. We'll wait a few minutes until Yap returns.
I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
You just
Yes.
lost for a minute.
I got the question.
So I'll repeat the question. Does Talon also run in combination with ONTAP Select? So let me extend this question and say, does Talon support all SMB servers?
Correct. So basically, we typically, this with ONTAP Select, where ONTAP Select, if that's used for example, NFL workloads or NFS workloads, Talon coexists with that for the purpose of SIFs and SMB. And a lot of customers, they are now getting towards moving their data for central enablement of backup and security. And what we're seeing is that the SMB SIS workload is leveraged for the purpose of collaboration. Short, yes, we coexist with ONTAP Select. Sometimes if there's a requirement for NFS, ONTAP Select may be the solution of choice. If you have a requirement for real-time data access and collaboration using SIFs and SMB, Talon can provide that functionality in close concert with Select.
All right. Another question that came in, can you associate an edge with more than one core?
Yes, great question. And that's a question that I hear a lot when customers have multiple data centers, either on-premise, in the cloud, or a combination of both. So yes, to your point, a single edge can be associated with one or multiple core instances. A single core instance can be associated with one or multiple backend file server targets. So if you have 10 servers in the cloud and 5 of them are Cloud Volumes ONTAP instances and 5 are just regular Windows file servers, we can kind of aggregate all of these file servers in the same name, so one edge can access all of that data and cache it in a hierarchical way.
All right, thank you. One last question, because we are really running out of time. Large global law firms makes extensive use of document management systems, which manage versioning, etc. How would Talon work with that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because when you're talking about document management, you're typically talking about most organizations are leveraging structured data workloads, i.e. DMS solutions, SharePoint, workflow, and leverage things like identity and access management and rights management for the purpose of document handling and file handling. There's definitely a use case for that. If a customer large unstructured data footprint and traditional DMS solutions do not fit the bill in terms of performance or in terms of the ability to leverage more. Because we're using a global namespace, we can also help fit into existing workflows and processes and just handle the file aspect of that being presented to the users, while you have a front end that, for example, does use a web page or a web portal that allows you to do search, to do queries, to work data check in and check out. So if there's a specific requirement, I'd love to have a discussion about that, because we have a few customers leverage that type of principle.
All right. So let's wrap it up then. I encourage you to go ahead and try 12 volumes ONTAP now through our 30 days trail. You can either go directly to the AWS or Azure Marketplace or through Cloud Central and set up your environment in no time. That basically concludes our session for today. Any questions that were not addressed, we'll get back to you by email. A link to the webinar video and the presentation will soon be available on our website. I'm estimating it would be early next week, maybe Sunday or Monday. and of course, they will be sent to you. I'd like to thank you all very much for participating today. I'd like to thank you, Jaap, for coming in and joining our monthly webinar series. I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye-bye all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Odette.
Thank you.